Welcome to this explainer, everyone. Today, we're diving into a genuinely hilarious, yet surprisingly profound look at Bakra Eid. We're using a brilliantly animated sketch to take a journey from everyday slapstick chaos all the way down to deep self-reflection. I absolutely love breaking down topics like this because it really shows how comedy can be the ultimate vehicle for truth. So let's just get right into it, shall we? We plunge headfirst into the chaotic reality of holiday prep. Catch it, it's running toward the drain. That's exactly how the source material opens, with frantic shouts and people literally chasing a runaway sacrificial animal through the streets, desperately trying to keep it from falling into an open drain. It instantly sets the tone, right? This isn't your serene, picture-perfect holiday. On the ground, it's messy, highly unpredictable, and just absolute chaos. So throughout this explainer, we're going to break down the brilliant ways the creator uses comedy to totally deconstruct our flawed cultural habits around the Eid season. What starts as this series of highly relatable, laugh-out-loud jokes, well, it eventually builds up to deliver a remarkably powerful philosophical takeaway at the very end. Okay, let's dive right into the first part of our analysis. Section 1, the chaos of Eid. Basically, reality versus our expectations. Let's start by looking at how the pure spiritual intention of the holiday completely collides with messy earthly realities. The source material brilliantly pits modern vanities against the raw, uncontrollable nature of a livestock animal. Picture this. You have the son deeply worried about his multi-step anti-acne skincare routine, right? And then he makes the wildly questionable choice to wear brand new shoes to a muddy cattle market. On the flip side, you've got the goat, whose literally only priority is, well, urinating directly on those brand new shoes. It completely destroys the family's attempt to keep order, and man, does it perfectly highlight how ridiculous our superficial concerns look when faced with raw reality. Moving on to Section 2, status symbols and show-offs. The cattle market turns into a theater for the ego. Beyond the physical mess, the cattle market itself becomes this fascinating stage for social posturing. We see a massive clash of mindsets here, a real generational divide. The son is using practical logic. Hey, let's buy the animal early before the good ones are gone. Makes total sense. But the father, he is operating on a totally different wavelength. He wants to wait to find a so-called commando goat, basically a massive, aggressive, head-turning animal whose absolute sole purpose is to make the neighbors jealous. The act of sacrifice isn't just a religious duty anymore. It's morphed into a neighborhood status symbol. And the absurdity peaks when the family encounters a neighbor who drops a mind-blowing 3 lakh rupees, that's 300,000, on a single goat. And the kicker? The creator makes sure to point out that this ridiculously expensive goat actually has a broken horn. The neighbor is treating this animal exactly like a luxury sports car, totally blind to its actual physical flaws just because he's so blinded by that massive price tag. When somebody asks him about spending 300,000 rupees on an injured goat, the neighbor proudly fires back, "God gave me money, so why be stingy?" Wow! That quote right there hits the nail on the head. It perfectly captures the whole satirical point of the sketch, highlighting how a deeply spiritual sacrifice gets twisted into pure materialistic arrogance. People are essentially using religious devotion as an excuse to just flaunt their wealth. Now let's see how this whole thing builds into a completely new dynamic once the animal actually gets brought home. Which brings us to Section 3, the arrogant butcher, the guy with the real power on Eid. Because once the animal is finally bought, a brand new hierarchy emerges, dominated by the most elusive figure of the entire holiday. So, who holds the real power on Eid? You might think it's the rich neighbor showing off his expensive goat, or maybe the proud father with his majestic commando animal. But nope. As this explainer reveals, absolute power on this day belongs entirely to the butcher. The butcher completely leverages the immense seasonal demand to act like some untouchable VIP. I mean, you can't even talk to him directly. No, you have to make an appointment through his so-called manager. He starts off demanding an outrageous 11,000 rupees and literally threatens to charge extra for priority service if you want the job done faster. It's only after some really aggressive street-level haggling that they finally settle somewhere between 5,000 and 7,000 rupees. The creator uses this hilarious negotiation scene to show how basic supply and demand totally upends the social order for just a few days a year. All right, Section 4, the consequence of gluttony. It's time for the feast and the inevitable overeating. So after the sacrifice is finally complete, the focus naturally shifts to the feast. And here, the humor takes direct aim at sheer, unadulterated gluttony. Notice how fast moderation just gets thrown right out the window. The father's eating schedule is an absolute masterclass in comedic escalation. In the morning, he eats the entire goat liver by himself. By the afternoon, he's moved on to a heavy meat lunch. Just 2 hours later, he's back at it with more liver, chased down with tea, pastries, and cake. And to top the whole thing off, at night, he hits up a feast to gorge on trotters or a paella. This inevitably leads to a desperate doctor's visit where he's sweating, his heart is racing, and he mistakenly thinks that chugging a simple cup of green tea is going to magically cure his massive overeating. Come on, we all know someone who uses that green tea excuse. But the gluttony goes way beyond just eating. The actual noble act of distributing the meat gets totally corrupted. The intended goal of the holiday is to create equal, fair shares. One for your own home, one for your relatives, and one for the poor. But the father's reality? Totally different story. He gets caught red-handed hoarding the absolute finest, softest cuts of meat exclusively for himself, while tossing the unwanted scraps, the fat, and the bones into the bags meant for everyone else. It's a really sharp, kind of uncomfortable critique of how human selfishness can secretly hijack a charitable tradition. Now, Section 5, the true meaning of sacrifice, going beyond the meat. And here is where our explainer takes a sharp, highly reflective pivot from comedy to profound clarity. Up until now, we've been having a good laugh, right? But the creator completely drops the humor here to remind us what Qurbani actually means. It isn't just about consuming meat. Fundamentally, it is about bowing to a higher command by sacrificing your own ego, your desires, and your negative habits. The physical act of the holiday is honestly just a symbol for a much deeper, internal sacrifice that we are all supposed to be making. The source material challenges us to look inward and really slaughter our own bad habits, things like laziness, or lying to ourselves to justify our flaws, just like the neighbor justifying his vanity, or the father justifying his greed. We need to sacrifice bad manners, or bad kalami, and the chronic wasting of our time. It's a truly powerful realization that the real animal we need to conquer is the ego, living inside of us. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a final provocative question. Take a second to reflect on your own life, your routines, and your own justifications. Look past all the humor, the food, and the cultural noise. What is the one personal flaw that you need to give up today? Thank you so much for joining me on this journey from comedy to clarity. Until next time, keep learning, keep reflecting, and keep growing.